Good morning, everyone. Sorry about that. Welcome to this Oxfordshire Greentech webinar in conjunction with B4 Live. I'm Philippa Hoy from Oxfordshire Greentech. And today, with businesses and shops being allowed to come back to life in the last few weeks, we're very fortunate to have our Oxfordshire Greentech member, LCMB Building Performance, able to share their expertise on building management and workplace well-being. So I'm delighted to welcome Rudi du Plessis, Director of Operations at LCMB, here today to talk to us about how we can all function effectively at work while still staying safe. I'm going to give a very quick introduction to Oxfordshire Greentech and then hand over to Rudi. So for anyone not aware, Oxfordshire Greentech launched just last year with the intention of being the business network supporting the growth of the low carbon economy in Oxfordshire. So Oxfordshire Greentech is a collaboration between environmental charity Bioregional, who I work for, Cherwell District Council and Cambridge Cleantech. So we bring together businesses, academia, and other organisations to really encourage innovation, collaboration, knowledge transfer, all to try and transition towards a sustainable low carbon future much faster than we all would working independently. We're very responsive to the needs and interests of our membership. At the moment, we have kind of 4 real areas of focus. Low carbon mobility, developing circular economy business models, the built environment, and then what makes all of these things happen is we look a lot at access to finance and helping our members find the right partners. We're very much a partnership with Cambridge Cleantech, it's a very similar organisation working over that side of the country, and members benefit automatically from membership of one network. They can get all the benefits of being a member of both. So Oxfordshire Greentech is really developing as a kind of a green ecosystem for low carbon businesses in Oxfordshire. We've got the techie side, those sorts of companies and innovators, and also all the organisations that they need to succeed, such as lawyers, accountants, architects, right down to planet positive printers. So it's a great ecosystem that's developing. We appreciate it's a tough time for businesses at the moment, so we have had a free membership offer out for a little while now. So any new SME who'd like to join Oxfordshire Greentech can do so and get 6 months free membership until the end of June. So do note that. It's a great opportunity to kind of try before you buy. So if you're interested in that, please contact details at the end, do just get in touch and let us know and see how we can help you develop in a low carbon future. So with no further ado, on to the presentation this morning, and to welcome Rudi, as I mentioned, is Operations Director at LCMB. Rudi spent the last 20 years working in the facilities management area, delivering facilities management and property operations, managing large-scale capital projects, and mitigating the risk in workplace and property environments. And Rudi is a certified member of the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management. So I'm going to hand over to Rudi, and as we're quite a small select few this morning, we want to make this really interactive. So if you've got any questions, just unmute and drop in, and let's just make this really informal chat and get the information that you want out of this presentation. Rudi's very happy for that. Equally, if you just like to put a question in the chat box that we can come to at the end, we've got time for a Q&A session at the end as well. Please do that as well. So it's entirely up to you. So Rudi, if you'd like to share your screen, it's over to you.
Okay, thank you, Philippa. Welcome everybody. Hopefully my screen sharing is working. So welcome this morning. We just want to have a quick discussion around how you safely reoccupy your workplace, because all of us have now sort of got used to the idea that you don't work from the office, which is interesting, but it can't last forever. So before we get started, I just want to warn you that you are likely to see one of my children walking behind me, or the dog barking, or the postman, or somebody yelling at the children or the dog. This is almost guaranteed, but I'm sure we've all been there now. Okay, so sorry, let me just get to the right screen. There we go. In terms of an agenda for today, brief introduction. We're going to look at the elements of safely returning to work, look at next steps, and then there is room for questions. Although, as Philippa said, if you've got any questions, please feel free to break in at any stage and ask away. Okay, so let's get started. I'll start with a bit of an introduction. So LCMB, we're a consultancy business. We've been running about 10 years now, 11 actually. And our mission is to help our customers work better by making their buildings work harder. Now, we do that in every way imaginable: facilities management, operational strategy, the actual real estate side of things, and the energy side of things. So if we can help you with that, please do get in touch. There's a picture of me that's pre the availability of no haircuts, so I apologize for my appearance. This is normal, I suspect. And my email address, which I'll put up again right at the end. So if you've got any questions, or you want to make a note of something, or you just want to have a chat, please do get in touch afterwards. So then on to the topic for today: managing a safe return to work. Now, a lot of organizations will have found that the transition into lockdown has been probably confusingly easy in some respects. People have responded very well to working from home, in my experience. If somebody's got a different view, please let me know. However, there is a time limit on that. And simple things that you can thrash out very easily face-to-face, or even just in the same office, shouting at each other across the desks, takes a longer time if you're doing it online. As an example, I'm doing a project at the moment on a design scheme. And what we're finding is that the queries that we've got with the client to get it all resolved is taking probably about 3 times as long as you'd expect. That's putting some pressure on the program. It's putting all sorts of tension in the scheme that we weren't expecting. Now, it's manageable, of course, but at some stage we'd like to get back to working the way we were before. I also think it would be good for business culturally and socially if people can actually start to speak to each other properly, face to face again, and not just look at each other with a frame around your head. So the two elements are, firstly, keeping the people safe, and then the workplace themselves. So let's look at the people first. It's built around risk assessment. Any project like this is likely to be led by a risk assessment. So your first question should be, who should actually go back to the workplace? Because people have discovered that they can work quite compellingly from not the workplace, do you actually need them to go back in there? And if you do, how are you going to get them there? I mean, the advice at the moment is kind of against public transport, which is, I know that goes against the green agenda, but if people can't use public transport, can they actually get to the workplace? Do they drive? Do they cycle? Is there somewhere for them to park? If they do cycle, is there somewhere for them to have a shower afterwards? All sorts of things like that. And then once they are on the premises, how do they actually get about safely, move? Because it's pointless if you get them into the office to go and sit at a desk and unable to go anywhere, unable to interact with people in the normal way, and then you may as well just leave them where they are. It's a very important point, that last one. If you're going to invest in this, invest in the people first and then the real estate. Your return on investment has been proven time and time again to be massively better by investing in the people than by investing in the real estate infrastructure. Oh, sorry, my slideshow is playing up a bit. So we'll come on to creating a safe workplace. Now, there are 5 elements to this. We've got the people themselves and their well-being, getting them to and from work, as I've already mentioned, the physical distancing. I'll come on to the 2 meters in a minute. General hygiene, cleaning and etc., and the building systems, HVAC and so forth. Now, they're on a flat line deliberately, because I don't believe that you can prioritize any one above the other. I think they are all equally important, and I think if you neglect one, you're likely to neglect something else as well. So bear that in mind. You could start on the left and work your way through, but bear in mind that what you need to do is look at every element equally and assess it properly. Okay, so the people and their well-being. The first point there is this is an unprecedented situation. We've never gone through this. Sorry, 40,000 plus deaths speaks its own story, and it is not good news. So you need to give your staff the time and the space they need, and if you've got access to occupational health, use it. Also, engage. Give your staff the opportunities to feedback and give you their view. Their experience is incredibly important in this. You might think that you've got absolutely everything right, and on paper you may have done. If your staff don't believe you, they won't be convinced. So make sure that they can talk to you, keep those channels open. It's the old saying, communicate, 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 communicate. And then when you've done that, communicate some more. That goes doubly for this situation, because it is scary. I don't think anybody could pretend otherwise. So getting to and from work. The first part of this is getting in and out. As I mentioned, public transport is not a good idea. So how will that affect staff? Few will be lucky enough to be able to walk or cycle. That doesn't really exclude everybody else from joining. People have, over the last few years, made different choices about where they live and where they work, sometimes commuting for hours just to get to work. Can they do that? Does it still work for them and for you? And as I said, how will they get around once they're there? Sorry. How will they get in and out? Is it safe? Can they move around? Is it safe? And are you adequately protecting your support staff, people like the reception staff, your security officers, all sorts of things like that? It's also things like one-way systems. Do you need a one-way system? Can you operate in a way where one door becomes the entry point and the other door becomes the exit point? Is your fire exit suitable for this? Can they be utilized? But at all points, you need to consider safety, and don't concentrate on COVID and forget about fire safety, because that's just not going to help anybody. So think it through logically, step by step. Put yourself in their shoes. Walk into the office and say, I've got to get to this desk on the 4th floor. How do I do it? How do I get up the stairs? Can I use a lift? Lifts are a bit of a pain in this situation. The government has suggested some sort of layouts where everybody turns their back to each other. Now, that might work, but how are you going to police that? How are you going to ensure that it stays safe? Because in my experience, very few lifts are going to be large enough for having more than one person. And if you've got a 2-story building, then most people can take the stairs. But what about the staff that aren't able to do that? And what about the staff on the 11th floor? How are you going to deal with that? So think carefully and go back to the first principal question. Do you need them in the office? And if you do, what are they going to do there? How are they going to get about? Okay, physical distancing. I wanted to touch on the 2 meters here, because the prevailing advice currently as we speak is 2 meters social distance. That looks to be under review, and it may change. It may become 1 meter. I don't know, it may become 3 meters. But you need to plan to be flexible, because 2 meters is what we need to live with now. But if it does become 1 meter, does that automatically mean we can double the occupancy? I suspect not. So there's 4 parts to this, really. Can you move or remove and take out of service things so that people are the 2 meters apart? Can you use physical screens and barriers? With physical screens and barriers, A, there's a cost involved, and B, where does that leave you culturally? If you have an open plan approach, you probably have good reasons for having an open plan approach. So if you then go and put physical screens and barriers up, do you undo all of that? And do you change the office culture? So how are you going to deal with that? Staggered shifts and flexible work patterns, that's quite straightforward. Just make people occupy the office at different times. This probably means that your occupancy cost might go up a bit because you need to run things like HVAC for longer, but it does enable you to use your existing space more flexibly and probably better. And last but not least, remote working, use of technology, and I'll come on to workplace PPE in a second. We've been doing remote working and use of technology already. Flexible working is not a new concept. However, most people are not used to flexible working 24/7 as they've been forced to do. Workplace PPE is an interesting one because there seems to be a huge focus on face masks and screens and goggles and gloves and everything like that. It is still PPE. And in the hierarchy of health and safety stuff, PPE should always be considered last. So don't forget that. Don't rely on masks, etc., just because it's convenient. You need to engineer out the risks rather than give people PPE. Now, that is also interesting in terms of public transport now, where face masks have become compulsory. So it would be sensible, if your staff does have to use public transport, to issue them with the required PPE. If you're requiring them to commute to work, then you are still responsible. So it's a legal case that I wouldn't fancy fighting. General hygiene. Keep it visible, frequently and visibly. So daytime cleaning is your answer here, I suspect. Make sure that your cleaning regimes can be seen and that people know what's going on. Use last cleaned by on labels. And there's some simple tricks here. You can use a label with a green side and a red side, and every time you clean it, you flip it over. So red side, and you write a time. Some dry wipe markers will do the trick. It's probably a good idea to, as a facilities manager, to come up with a bit of a internal cleaning news system to share with your staff. Whether you put up little signs or whether you send an email or a newsletter type, whatever you find appropriate. But tell people what you're doing. Coming back to people's perception, it doesn't matter if it's squeaky clean. If people don't think it's clean, they will not be satisfied. So make it visible. The last point on there is about things like soap, hand sanitizer, tissues, wipes, etc., etc. Every office environment will be slightly different in terms of what you use. But under normal circumstances, running out of those things is annoying, and it doesn't reflect well, and it really means that you're not managing the place as well as you probably should. Under COVID-19 return circumstances, this takes on a whole different level. If people can't wash their hands, having been told, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands for the last, since January, they are simply going to leave. And that's not good for anybody. Building systems, potentially the most complicated of the lot, because these are the hardware infrastructure things that you need to be considering. The first point on there is around thermal imaging. So do you want to check staff and visitors for fever as they arrive? There are many products on the marketplace that will take a thermal image picture of somebody as they enter the building. Think about it carefully though, because there's some privacy issues to resolve. There's potentially some cultural organizational issues to resolve. So if you are going to do that, make sure that you get the best advice and you get the right kind of system that works very well for what you're trying to do. Air changes. Now, this is we've been working with some NHS clients for a long time, and air changes is always a very, very hot topic, particularly when it comes to theatres and healthcare settings. The more, the better. The more regularly you can refresh the entire content of the air that we breathe, the better for everybody concerned. So if your HVAC systems can do it, set it to go to fresh air rather than recirculated. The higher the percentage, the better. So it doesn't matter if you can't do all of it. If you can do 50-50, that's better than 100% recirculated. And if you do have windows that can open, please open them. Yeah. So lifts, I've sort of touched on it already. Your lifts are probably one of your most complicated situations in this office setting. Can you still use them? Should you be taking them out? If you are going to use them and they need to be one person in at a time, can you police that? Or are you going to rely on people to sort of auto police and self police what you're doing? That's a tricky question, and I haven't come up with the answers. The main reason is I don't know what the answers are, but hopefully with a bit of thought you can come up with it for yourself. The last point on there is about automation. If you've got automatic doors that can sense presence and open, card readers that can open the doors automatically, all of those sorts of things, do use them. This virus, much as I'm not a scientist and I can't pretend to be, it appears to live in moisture in the air. And once the moisture settles on a surface, it needs help to move. So we move it by touching things and then touching our hands, etc., etc. So if we can avoid that, that is useful. And it comes back again to sanitary wipes and your cleaning regime. So if people are confident that your surfaces are nice and clean, then they will use the spaces as desired. They will also treat them with the respect they deserve in that scenario. So if it's clean already and somebody's used a desk, they're likely to use one of the wipes you provide and clean up after themselves. But if they come there and it's a mess, they're not going to have the willingness to help you out in that way. Okay, so then coming on to next steps. So once you've considered all these things, you've considered how you're going to keep your people safe, and you've considered how you're going to make your workplace safe in the first place, what do you do then? First point, risk assess. This is the fundamental for all actions that involve workplace safety, risk assess. We've got some tools on our website. You're welcome to access them if you need them. But whatever you use, make sure that you consider everything you can think of. So point number 2 there, I couldn't think of any other ways to say communicate. But really, I couldn't stress it enough. Communicate, talk to people, chat to them, write to them, send them messages, ask them what's going on. Use pigeon post if you must, but get their feedback. It's absolutely vital. And then the third one is challenge yourself. As I said before, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Walk the journey through the workplace yourself so that you can understand how they are going to experience it and what you need to do to make their experience more positive and better. And then once you've done that, go back and do it again, because the systems are liable to change. So in conclusion, the first point is that the workplace must offer something that people cannot get somewhere else. If it doesn't, then let them work somewhere else. Second point, think carefully about where you spend your money. You know, the economy is in a little bit of a hole at the moment, so money is not flush for most organizations. If you are going to invest in the people. Training, better ability to work remotely, better resources. It will pay back more than investment in the buildings. And then it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. This situation is certainly unique, it's changing all the time, and there's no quick resolution here. So take your time, spend the time you need and get it right. Review what you're doing, go back, tweak it. We've discussed the 2 meter rule. That might become the 1 meter rule. If that changes, that's quite a lot of work to go through, but just systematically go through. Start at one place and work your way through. And then, last but not least, be prepared to roll with the punches. This might change. I hope it doesn't, but we may end up with a further section of lockdown. We may end up with local lockdowns where one of your offices are open, but the others can't be. So be prepared for it. Don't be caught on the hoof. Don't be surprised when it happens. It's likely to. And this is part of the job of managing workplaces. You have to be prepared to roll with the punches. So I've left some room for questions. If there's any questions, anybody's welcome to join in.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rudi. I think that was a really straightforward presentation and just, yeah, making you think through all the different steps that we should all be thinking about going back to work. And I'm really pleased that Bioregional, my organisation, have, they're sending out a staff to listen to our views. We've been talking about it. And we've got an Oxford office and a London office. So London, there's a lot of public transport, maybe that they should stay at home a bit longer. It's not great season, we're on a eco park drive to work, but so weighing up those sorts of things. So does anybody have any questions for Rudi? Please do just unmute and jump in. Let's make this a really interactive chat. Anything that's worrying you or you'd like to get Rudi's advice on?
Rowena Jackson, could I ask a question, Rudi, please? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm really interested to hear what you said about the building systems, and a couple of questions really around that area, because I think that's quite a specialist area and one that I'd like some more information on. You mentioned about air changes and HVAC to switch to fresh air, not recirculated. Just wondered how straightforward that is, what the energy consumption issues might be, and how you might actually communicate that, because that might be something that's almost invisible to people.
Okay, so let's start with how easy that is. I'm afraid the answer for that is depends. It's going to depend on the age of your system, on the design of your system, and on the control strategy. So in many cases, modern systems will enable you to change and tweak the fresh air versus the recirculated air. In that case, it'll be quite simple. If you have an older system that was designed specifically with a sealed building in mind and very little air circulation, that will be quite difficult. In that case, you're probably going to have to increase what is called your scrubbing rate, which is essentially filtering the air that is in there and cleaning it up so that it can recirculate. Your second part of your question is around energy usage. Again, it's not a simple answer, but there's likely to be an increase in energy, particularly in cooling in the summer, depending on the outside air temperature, because it's a simple case of if you're cooling more air from, say, 30 degrees outside to 22 degrees inside, rather than recooling the air that was coming in from the building at 22 degrees before, it will increase your energy. It's not a simple answer, though. There is a quite a complex equation to make in terms of how much that will influence. Happy to have a conversation offline if that would help.
Thanks, Verena. That's great. Got a question from Stephen. Should we check our insurance to ensure appropriate cover? Have things changed since pre-lockdown?
That's a very interesting question, Stephen, and I'm not sure I know the answer, to be honest. This is a risk like any other, so it's not something I've considered myself. I would think that you're best advised to check your insurance, but I don't know what is the best question to ask.
Yeah, it's a complex area, all this. Anyone else? Questions for Rudi?
Sorry, may I come back with another one? It's Rowena again.
Yeah, of course.
On the thermal imaging, I've actually seen sort of on the TV and what have you, a lot of places using thermal imaging, particularly in sort of manufacturing industry where they've got a lot of people coming and going regularly, different shift patterns and what have you. I just wondered if you'd come across any attempts to manage the privacy and cultural issues around that. I mean, are they getting people to agree to that as a
yes,
principle?
Yeah, we have a customer in central London who normally operate a sort of 3,000 strong office. They're currently down to about 1% of that. So what they have done is they've installed some thermal imaging cameras, which are not connected to any networks. They go on a screen, and it's kind of relying on people to self-check as they walk in. So there's got big signs up that says, please check your own temperature against our thermal imaging camera. If you're concerned at all, please speak to us and don't come in. That sort of thing. So that's one approach. That's the only one I've seen. Personally, in our own offices, I'm not advocating it, just because I don't think that's culturally fits with what we're trying to do, but that would be different across the board.
There's also the issue that some people are asymptomatic, no fever. You've got to make sure, as you said, all your other points are in place as well, not relying on a screen as such.
Yeah, indeed, indeed, and that's a very valid point. Thank you, Philippa. This is a holistic picture. You have to look at the whole thing. You can't just consider thermal imaging or health screening or social distancing as a singular item. You have to look at the whole picture.
So Rudi, I have a question. Thinking about the particular kind of hotspots of risk in an office, and I think you mentioned a couple of times about lifts and how they might be difficult. What would come after that? I'm thinking about things like toilets or coffee making, shared facilities. Yes. Have you got any ideas how we deal with that?
Okay, so toilets are an interesting one. I've not seen it, but I've heard of installations where people have literally put the traffic light systems onto their restrooms, so it's going to become a one in, one out. If you've got the luxury of lots and lots of space and multiple entrances, you can have a one-way system. But that's unlikely to, unless you're in a stadium. That's unlikely to be in place for most offices. So bathrooms are particularly tricky. One way past that is to increase your cleaning frequency and have somebody cleaning that probably every half hour or so. Other than that, you are just relying on good practice from people. And this is why it's so important to speak to your staff, because your staff will need to contribute to this. They will have to help you out with making sure that the place is safe. So if you speak to them and you say, look, we're worried about how we're going to manage our bathrooms, just deal with it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one key point. Coffee and catering. Catering is particularly difficult. If you do provide catering, you've got several complicated issues that potentially staring you in the face. One is that your likely occupancy is going to be down. So is your catering still worth providing? That's the first one. Second is the social distancing in catering spaces. So you can easily overcome that by simply taking every third or every 2 out of every 3 chairs out, if that works, and staggering people so they don't sit opposite each other. but does that give you a problem when you've got a packed canteen normally, and suddenly you've got a lunch queue that's 4 times as long? That itself presents a risk. And then in the kitchen setting, social distancing can be quite difficult because many kitchens are very optimally designed, and that doesn't allow a lot of room for maintaining social distance of any nature. So you need to think of those operators and how you're going to keep them safe too.
Yeah, I know I'm lucky enough to have a son that's gone back to school, and they normally cater, but they've just asked us all to provide packed lunches because they just couldn't work that out in the kitchens. They're doing almost everything else they've managed to work out, but that just didn't work.
The science behind the spread of the virus and food seems to suggest, and that comes with the caveat of I'm not a scientist, and based on what I've read, seems to suggest that the virus does not spread via food itself very easily. However, do you want to take the risk, and when are we going to be certain?
And that bringing everybody together to eat at a particular time. Yeah. Great, thank you for that. Any more questions? We've got a bit more time if anybody would like to ask anything else.
Yeah, Verena, just a comment, I guess, rather than a question specifically. I wonder how people will feel about hot desking in the new way of working.
This is
going to the office.
Yeah, hot desking is tricky. There are and there have been many good reasons for hot desking, in terms of space saving, in terms of optimization, in terms of giving people a different landscape to look at every time they go to the office. In a COVID setting, you can still do it, but you need to be very careful in terms of making sure that it's properly disinfected between uses. So you can either do that by, as I said, sort of cleaning labels, and you have a cleaning team on standby, excuse me, ready to clean and disinfect as people get up, pretty much, pounce on the desk and clean it. Or you can provide your own sort of wipes and so forth, and ask your staff to clean before and after they use a space. In terms of how people are going to feel about it, I don't know for sure, but I can guess that it's unlikely to be perceived as overly positive right now. So it may be best to try and do something away from hot desking for a while.
Yeah, thank you. Now, Rudi, we're going to send out after the event a link to a guide that you've put together. Is that right?
Yes. So I've put up on screen there my contact details again. We've written a quite detailed guide that you can download from our website. My mobile number is on there. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. Or if you just want to have a chat about something, happy to have a chat about it. We've also got a form-based Word document assessment that you can have free of charge. It's based on the government's own guidance on returning to work, asks a series of questions, and then you can answer it based on your own setting. That's not something that you can ask anybody else to do. Unfortunately, you have to do that for yourselves. But hopefully, it's a tool that gives you the opportunity to do that quite easily.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm definitely going to pass that on to our operations manager. That's great, thank you. And I should say as well that LCMB have worked with Oxfordshire Greentech for a while now, and obviously we're completely focusing on COVID today, but maybe while you're looking at your office and reassessing for all this sort of thing, you might be thinking about the whole build back better sort of idea of, and things we've learnt through lockdown, and how can your building be more sustainable in future? How can you encourage more sustainable actions in your staff in the future? And I know Rudi and his colleagues are experts at that as well, if there is anything you'd like to talk to them about. Great.
I can bore you for hours about that.
I know, it's a much more fun, positive subject, isn't it? Yeah. So any final questions? Otherwise, I'll just do a quick wrap up. just share my screen. Okay, right. So just wanted to say a very big thank you to Rudi for that. We have other members also presenting on very important topics for us over the next few weeks. Tomorrow, if you're interested, our colleagues in Cambridge are running a webinar about creating winning teams in the future, with a lot of sort of people-centered experts there. 23rd of June, that's next Tuesday, we're looking at strategic partnering and how to energize your business going forward with strategic partners. In July, we turn to more of an energy focus. We're going to be hearing about the great new energy super hub Oxford is going to have. It's up and being developed right now, which is very exciting. And then 8th of July, we're going to hear about a new affordable energy services system that you can get involved with throughout Oxfordshire. All of these are on the Oxfordshire Greentech website if you'd like to sign up. The last three of these are all in conjunction with B4, who are very grateful to partnering with us on that. So it all remains to say thank you for attending this morning. Hopefully that was a very useful presentation and discussion. As we mentioned, we'll be sending through the notes. Don't forget, membership of Oxfordshire Greentech, free membership for 6 months offer ends at the end of June. So we'd love to hear from you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you again to Rudi and to the B4 team. And we hope to see you again at our events in the future. Thank you. Goodbye.